This video is sponsored by Tapin, your premier coaching service. Now, most people think the path to climbing is just more games, but reps don't fix anything if you're repeating the same errors every game. Let's be honest, that's just for funning, and we're here to win some LP. The shortcut is finding someone who's already solved the problems you're stuck on, which is where Tapin comes in. Input your role, your rank, and your goals, and it matches you with the right coach almost immediately. You can review a replay of your own game or live coach in-game, whatever works for you. I use it myself when I'm in a rut, and that small push of having someone analyze my games is usually enough to iron out my losses and get me back in the right frame of mind for climbing. You can use code rival24 in the description for a 24% discount, and also one person who signs up through the link gets a full coaching session with me for free. There is a testimonial from the last winner on screen right now, so good luck. All right, First Stand 2026 is happening right now in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and while the games have been great, the story everyone's talking about actually has nothing to do with what happened on the Rift. It involves Gen.G's very own Chovy and a Brazilian streamer named Baiano. Now, if you're not familiar with Baiano, he's easily one of the biggest League of Legends content creators, period, not just in Brazil. Massive personality, even bigger audience, and by his own description, the world's biggest faker and T1 fan. He won Personality of the Year at the Brazilian Esports Awards back-to-back in 2023 and 2024 and has over 1 million followers on Twitch and was given official co-streaming credentials for First Stand, which basically means Riot handed him a media pass and let him loose at the event. And Chovy, heading into this tournament, was playing arguably the best League of Legends of his career. In the 2026 LCK Cup, he went 20 wins and 2 losses across 22 games, posting a 91% win rate and a 7.1 KDA. He finished first among all mid laners in CS per minute, damage per minute, CS differential at 15, XP differential at 15, gold differential at 15, gold per minute, and KDA. First in everything except, I think, First Bloods or something like that. On top of that, he's the first player in LCK history to win 4 consecutive LCK titles, with 4 season MVPs to his name. So he was obviously on an absolute heater going into Brazil, definitely in form. But he also carries this reputation that follows him everywhere internationally, the Choky label. 3 Worlds appearances without a title, and every one of those titles went to Faker. So here's where the two collide. After Gen.G knocked out Gen.G at First Stand, Baiano got to do a post-match interview with Chovy, and during that interview he placed a popcorn bucket with the Gen.G logo on it right in front of Chovy on the broadcast. Now, to a Western audience, this might just look a bit weird, but in Brazil, pipoca, or popcorn, is the root of the slang term pipoqueiro, and pipoqueiro means choker. It's kind of a slang insult in Brazilian gaming and sports culture. Baiano was essentially calling Chovy a choker with the popcorn placement. I also don't know how I got through all of that without having to do 2 takes. And then minutes later, Baiano posted a photo with Chovy on Twitter. The caption included a popcorn emoji and a message thanking Chovy for handing 3 Worlds titles over to Faker. A tweet which, by the way, has since been deleted. So either someone has had a word with Baiano or he either thought better of it. Either way, it's gone. Now, some people were claiming online that Baiano had actually gotten approval for all of this beforehand. Riot, Gen.G, that the digs at Chovy, the popcorn bucket, the whole bit had been signed off. But he didn't, and we know this because Gen.G's CEO Arnold got asked about it directly on Twitter, and his response was pretty straightforward. Gen.G did approve an interview with the on-site co-streamer, but that was it. None of the other stuff was mentioned or cleared beforehand. And I mean, poking fun at or humiliating the face of a multi-million-dollar esports empire that generates probably most of the brand's revenue, yeah. But this isn't even the first time something like this has happened at a major Riot event. I actually covered this exact issue back at Worlds 2025. The video on that is in the description, but if you missed it, just a little TLDR. A Spanish streamer named Irene Raw was given media access to interview T1's Keria after a match. Keria, exhausted after a full day of playing professional league and language barrier very much in play, gave short answers and wasn't in the mood to put on the cutesy faces Irene was asking of him. And rather than accepting that, Irene Raw posted about it publicly, calling him unfriendly and told fans she hoped bad things would happen to T1. I think she even placed a voodoo curse on him or something of that crazy nature. And the community sided with Keria pretty much instantly, obviously, and Irene eventually deleted the post and apologized, but not before the damage to her career was done. Honestly, it's kind of hard to hold third-party co-streamers fully accountable when Riot's own official broadcast has done pretty much the same thing. At MSI 2025, Riot put up a graphic on their official production that read, "Chovy, more like Choky," with a subline predicting that Chovy and Gen.G would collapse at the tournament on their own broadcast about one of their own players. And of course, the backlash was immediate and pretty justified. If that's the standard being set from the top of the production, it's not exactly surprising when co-streamers think that type of behavior is fair game. But to be fair to Baiano, the Brazilian crowd and his audience absolutely loved the popcorn bit. In Brazil, this kind of banter is pretty normal sports culture, and Baiano's whole brand is built on connecting with his viewers in this way. They have a very family culture there. And his audience knew exactly what the popcorn meant the second it came out, and they loved it. And when you're the two-time personality of the year in Brazilian esports, you don't get there by being boring, which is exactly why he knew his fans would love it. Except the problem isn't really just the joke itself. It's more the abuse of power in an official media setting, with credentials that came with an expectation of professionalism, and apparently without anyone's approval. So to be clear, the popcorn stunt, the choker mockery, the tweet, none of that was sanctioned by Gen.G, and Baiano went off script in a professional media setting, using his official credentials to troll one of the faces of the tournament, and apparently without anyone's blessing, which can actually be pretty controversial if said player generates a company millions in revenue based on their appearance and public perception. Not just Gen.G, but Riot themselves. And what makes this a little bit ironic is that right around the same time, Chovy was asked on camera about the Brazilian crowd, and he responded with a very sweet "I love you too, Brazil."
I love you too, Brazil.
Oh, I love you too, Brasil. Olha aí, que coisa linda, que coisa linda.
And one really important thing to know, Chovy obviously doesn't speak English very well, let alone Brazilian Portuguese, and definitely not in the know with the Brazilian sporting culture, so he kind of had no idea any of this was even happening while he was being ridiculed and laughed about online. The language barrier meant Chovy had no way of understanding what was happening or defending himself in the moment, so Baiano acknowledged it, reached out to both Gen.G and Chovy personally to apologize, and stated the intention was never to direct hate towards him. Obviously, we all knew that. So credit where it's due. But maybe if he'd made the joke directly to Chovy's face, it might have been received by the West and Korea a bit better. It's kind of the whole like behind the back thing or him not understanding that's pretty rough. But beyond this, Baiano actually then went a step further, posting an almost 9-minute video to Twitter summarizing everything he'd said on stream about the situation. He fully explained it all on camera, and Gen.G CEO Arnold replied to it in the most disarming way possible, just saying, let's move on, focus on League, and even joked about sneaking some Gen.G supporters into the venue. So good on both of them for being able to move on. So between this and the Irene incident, it'll be interesting to see if Riot takes any action over the misuse of official credentials. At some point, they have to take a look at this pattern and ask whether the co-streaming model needs clearer boundaries, stricter briefings, or just a higher bar for who gets a media pass in the first place. And I mean, if Chovy and Gen.G go on to win first stand, the tournament he publicly called his shot on before any of this happened, that popcorn bucket is going to look very silly in hindsight. Anyway, let me know down below whether you think Baiano crossed the line or if you think it's all just content. I personally think it's not too bad. The abuse of power and joking about him without him understanding it is kind of what I don't like, but I get where he's coming from and the nature of it all, I guess, especially with how apologetic Baiano was afterward, and again, Chovy didn't really understand. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one. Be sure to subscribe and let me know what you think down below. Bye!